Alright guys, welcome to the channel. In today's video, I'll be sharing with you 7 tactical ideas you should watch out for in your games. And these are tactical ideas that if you actually know how to use them in your games, you will see significant increase in your rating point. And without further ado, let's dive into it. The first tactical idea we'll be discussing in this video is the fork tactic, which can actually be done by all the pieces on the board, including the king. In this position, it's black to move. And if you notice something, you notice that black's rook is under attack. And if you move the rook away to any square, well, you simply lose this knight that is sitting here. So what do you do here? Well, so you strike with pawn to d5, and that's the fork we are talking about. The bishop and the queen is under attack, and in this position, they can't capture here because they simply lose their queen, and this bishop is actually pinned, and the pawn is well defended. And this is a combination of the fork tactic and the counter-attack tactic, because you notice that your rook is actually hanging. However, you are attacking a high-value piece, and they just have to move the piece, and they have to be careful where they move it. Because if they move the queen here, then comes this capture, and that's a fork on the king and on the queen. So they move the queen here, and you simply capture here, and you're up a piece and a completely winning position. Here's another example of the fork tactic. In this position, black plays bishop to c5, hitting your rooks, and they are expecting you to move the rook somewhere, but you have a winning move in this position, and you can pause the video to see if you can find it. It is a multipurpose queen to h5. You are threatening to deliver checkmate here while also going for this, and that's the fork tactic. And in this position, they just have to defend against the checkmate. And when they defend against that, well, you simply pick up the bishop and you're up a piece and chilling. All right, let's move on to another tactic, which is the skewer. The skewer usually involve attacking a higher value pieces that is in front of a lower value piece. Like in this position, now the king is forced to move and you simply pick up the rook and win. Let me show you another example that is very common and also very easy to miss. And you win a lot of end games if you are aware of this tactic. In this position, black simply just wants to move closer to your pawn and win the pawn. And it looks like there's nothing you can do against it. But using the skewer tactic, you simply move your rook here. And in this position, looks like you just gave up the pawn. But if they capture the pawn, then comes this check, and that's the skewer attacking the king, forcing the king away and simply capturing here, and you are up a rook and completely winning. All right, here is another position. We have a queen here, and we have a piece behind it. So what should be coming to your mind is, how do you attack the queen and also attack the piece behind it? And the answer is easy. You simply come here, and the queen has no way of defending this bishop, and when the queen moves away, you simply capture the bishop with a check, and you're up a piece and a completely winning position. Now we are moving on to the pin tactics. We have a pin on this knight. So what do you want to do when there's a pin? You want to add more attackers to that pinned piece, and in this position, you can simply pile up on the pinned piece by moving your knight to g4, and they can't capture your knight, because if they try to capture your knight, well, that just simply gives up a high value piece. And in this position, black is just helpless, as this knight is just going to fall on the next move. Let's look at another example. All right, here's another example of the pin tactics. In this position, white simply plays pawn to h5. We already have a pin on their bishop, and they are trying to distract us. And if you decide to capture here, well, instead of recapturing immediately, white simply plays a move like this. And whenever you move your rook, when you move your rook somewhere, they simply capture here, and this position is just completely equal and really tricky. If you are not careful, you might end up losing the game. But in this position, instead of capturing here, what do? Well, we pile up on the pinned piece. We already have a pinned piece. We want to pile up on it. We pile up on the pinned piece by playing a move like this. And if white captures this way, well, we capture this way and we still have the pin, and they can try a move like this. Well, it changes nothing. As we capture here, we check, and we are up a rook and a completely winning position. All right, let's take a look at the under promotion tactical idea, which is quite rare. However, they are extremely satisfying if you find them in your game, and you should be aware of them and also look out for them in your game. In this position, black simply takes on c3, and they have some tactical ideas in mind. They are expecting that if you capture here, well, they are going to capture your queen, and if you decide to capture this rook, promote to a queen, they simply give a check here, and after you move your king, well, they capture your queen, and if you do a material count, white is completely winning in this position. In this position, instead of promoting to a queen, you can capture here and under promote to a knight. And because the under promotion comes with a check, black is forced to attend to it. And when they capture here, well, you capture the queen and you're up a full rook and a completely winning position. All right, here's another example of the under promotion tactics. In this position, you have two pawns that are running towards promotion. Black also has a pawn that is running towards promotion. And in this position, push your pawn forward and you are threatening to promote on the next move. If black decide to push their pawn forward, well, you promote to a queen. And if they decide to promote to a queen, well, it changes nothing, as you also promote your second pawn to a queen, and that comes with a check, and checkmate is just coming in a few moves. So instead of pushing their pawn forward, black plays the tricky rook to c1, threatening to deliver checkmate on this square. And if you carelessly just promote to a queen now, well, this move is a beautiful checkmate. But here comes the under promotion. Well, you simply promote to a knight, and wherever the king moves to, you simply promote to a queen, and this king is really vulnerable, and this pawn is just not going to make it to promotion, and you are left with a completely winning position. In this position, we'll be talking about trap bishop, and I'll be sharing with you another example of a trap knight. In this position, Black's bishop is looking at this pawn, and you might be tempted to protect the pawn. However, you don't have to. You can allow your opponent capture, and if your opponent gets greedy and capture the bishop, then comes this move, and the bishop is just locked out as the bishop cannot escape. Black can try to play a random move like this with ideas of coming here next. Well, you simply move closer to the bishop, and they are left with no option than to sacrifice the bishop, and you are left with a completely winning endgame. Okay, let's look at another example, which is very common again. In this position, Black is threatening to capture this pawn or this pawn, and it looks like there's no way to save the pawns. So what do here? Well, you go for this tactical idea by protecting your pawn this way. Black cannot touch this pawn, because if they capture this pawn, well, then comes your rook, and this knight is trapped because, the knight would love to go into this square, but the knight can't go back into the square, and the knight would love to come here, and the knight can't go here. So the knight just has to give itself up for another pawn, and you are left with a completely winning endgame. All right, let's talk about another tactical idea that is extremely easy to miss, and a tactical idea that is easy to find if you're actually looking out for it. In this position, Black is up the exchange, and they would like to go into an endgame where they just completely win. So they offer you a queen trade, expecting that if you capture here, well, they can capture here, and it's just an equal trade. However, there is an in-between move here. Can you find it? You can pause the video to see if you can find it. It is the stunning rook sacrifice on d8. A rook sacrifice that they just have to accept because the bishop is taking away this square, and that would have been a checkmate if not that they can capture here. And when they capture here, well, the queen is no longer defended, and you can capture here, and you are left with a completely winning endgame. Here's another example of the in-between move, and the winning move will leave you speechless. In this position, White plays his turning rook to d1, hitting the queen and cutting away this square. So Black has to accept this sacrifice, because if they don't accept the sacrifice, you are planning to go here next, and that will just be checkmate because the rook is taking control of all of these squares. So Black accepts the sacrifice, and it looks like Black can get away with capturing the rook, because if you capture here, well, they simply capture this way, and that's just checkmate. But instead of capturing here immediately, then comes the in-between move, which is queen to a8 check, forcing the king into the square. Well, then comes this check, and the king is forced to move somewhere. And when the king moves somewhere, you simply capture here. And when Black captures, Black is threatening checkmate here. What do? Well, you come back this way, and you are defending against the square, and you are left with a completely winning endgame. All right, let's take a look at another example here. In this position, Black's queen is threatened, and you are also threatening to capture here. And Black cannot solve both of those problems at the same time, and Black decides to capture here. So you can pause the video to see if you can find the in-between move. They are expecting you simply capture here, or you capture here, and it's just an equal trade. However, there's an in-between move here, which is the amazing knight captures on f6, and that comes with a check. And if Black tries to get closer to your knight, saying I'm attacking this while also attacking this, well, it also worsens the case as you throw in another in-between move, forcing the king to move again. And when the king moves this time, well, you simply capture here. And if you do a material count, you are left with a completely winning position. All right, the last but not the least is the clearance sacrifice. If you observe something in this position, you observe that if your knight can come in here, that would just be a fork, a royal fork on all of these pieces. Well, your target will be the queen. But in this position, your queen is occupying that square, and you love your knight to go into the square. So what do you do in this position? Well, you sacrifice the queen, capturing something. And by capturing something now, Black is left with several options. They can capture this way if they wish. They can capture this way if they wish, but it changes nothing. You have already vacated this square that your queen was sitting on, so you can hop into it with a check, and that's just a royal fork. And on the next move, you pick up a piece, and mind you, we captured a knight here before this fork. So we traded our queen for a queen and a knight, and we are left with a completely winning endgame. All right, here's another example of the clearance sacrifice, and I love the clearance sacrifice a lot. In this position now, you will notice something. This queen is quite misplaced, and it looks like the queen has only a few squares to move to if you can attack the queen. But there's no easy way to attack the queen now, because you like to hop in your knight here, and that will just simply trap the queen. But you can't do that now because you have a piece sitting on that square. So what do you do here? You sacrifice the piece. We call it a clearance sacrifice. But where do you sacrifice it? If you sacrifice it here, where Black simply captures and they're chilling, you sacrifice the piece here. And regardless of how Black trade, you simply hop in your knight here. You are hitting the queen, also hitting the square, and this square is defended by the bishop. And Black is just going to lose their queen on the next move, and you are left with a completely winning position. In this position, you would like to put your queen here. However, you can't do that because you cannot capture your own rook. So what do you do here? That means you will need to sacrifice this rook. So where do you sacrifice it? If you sacrifice it here, well, that's bad because black simply captures this way and the knight is defended this way as the rook is also defending all of these squares, and now you are just forced to move your queen somewhere and they capture here and black is left with a completely winning position. So what do you do here? Well, you sacrifice the rook on this square and black can capture this way if they wish, they can capture this way if they wish, but regardless of how they capture, checkmate is just coming on the next move. Alright guys, if you have made it this far into the video, kindly hit the like button on the video and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching. With that, I'm out.